everyone in cloud computing, and welcome to episode 59 of the Cloud Computing for the C-Suite show, featured on YouTube and podcast with Brad Nelson and the internationally recognized and world's #1 cloud industry expert and thought leader, David Linthicum. This show is sponsored by Nelson Hilliard, cloud computing recruitment specialists, placing great people in cloud, IoT, fintech and AI. This week we're excited to have Sarbjeet Johal on our show as our special guest. Sarbjeet is a technology strategist who is building cloud and digital transformation programs and teams. He helps CIOs, CTOs and CxOs in formulating and executing their digital transformational journeys. Beside cloud, Sarbjeet talks passionately about innovation incubation and consumption economics. In this week's show, we'll be talking about defining digital transformation and patterns that are observed. Hi Dave and Sarbjeet, a warm welcome to you both. It's exciting to have you both on the C-Suite show this week.
It's great to be here, and it's great to have such a smart guest.
I'm glad to be here, guys. I'm so happy to be talking to you guys.
Yeah, it really is, and I know, Sarbjeet, this has been a long time coming, getting you on the show for diary reasons and your other arrangements you have on in your busy work life. So look, we really appreciate you coming on the show this week. So thanks for joining us. And an opening question this week that's going to be coming straight to you, actually, Dave. Should C-levels understand digital transformation and act around the CIO?
Yeah, they definitely should. It reminds me of, when I was a developer, back working for a big company. I had a boss who was actually really smart, a good innovator in the space. And I worked with a dumb guy. And me and the dumb guy were peers. And we had to drop software and get it out and, push it out into production, things like that. Well, almost every time my part of the program worked, my database changes work, things like that. He had a bends and all kinds of issues that came with his stuff. And of course, my boss would ask what's going on, and I would say, well, this guy is not, it's not dropping the right software, things like that. And he would tell me, he goes, "You're a lot smarter than him. You're responsible for this." And he said, "You need to go to be proactive and make sure that he does his job and get things out." And so, this is your fault too. You just can't really kind of point to somebody as messing up and not necessarily. And that was a lesson for me. And I even, when I manage people, I teach that. Fact of the matter is that the C levels out there, the CEOs, the COOs, and the CFOs need to be on top of the CIOs as really kind of those who are driving the digital strategy, because it's core to their business. We talked about that before on this podcast. This video shows that ultimately this is something that we really need to think of how the business is going to be built. It's going to be core strategic to the business, whether you're an automobile manufacturer, whether you're building motorcycles, you're a retailer, you're a tire manufacturer in the Midwest. It doesn't really matter. The ability to do the digital transformation correctly is going to be core to your business. And if you don't get this right, they can take your business down. So the C levels in there need to be on top of the CIOs, understand what the CIOs are doing, and God help them if they point to the CIOs or whoever is doing that as the one who screwed things up. Ultimately, it's their responsibility. And as investors, they're going to hold them accountable, and they should.
You've made some very good points there, Dave. Very, very good points. I think the accountability is key for the good of the project, for the over, like you say, for the return for the investors. And what are your thoughts there, Sarbjeet?
I think David is spot on. I think it's everybody's responsibility, the whole leadership, all C-level sort of suite, if you will. And even above that, the board of directors, actually, they should be well aware of what's going in the market. And if you actually think about what digital transformation is, actually it's a business transformation through digital means. That's in a nutshell, that's what it is. And it changes the way we plan, build, sell, distribute, and service any product or services we build, any company, right? It can be a tire company, an auto company, it can be healthcare, it can be any vertical, right? And the size of the companies can be different also, and it can be in any geography. It's the sort of that's the sort of like the common sort of denominator, if you will. So we are changing all those things in all these industries. If you think about all these buckets, plan, build, sell, distribute, service, then you are talking about CFOs getting involved, CEO getting involved, right? the people who are very close to the customer, marketing, sales, they are getting involved, right? So it's not CIO, only CIO's responsibility to be leading these efforts. Actually, CIO is an enabler, but I think drivers are the CEO and other C-level suite. So spot on.
It's certainly just to add to that subject from my point of view, from recruitment as well. I mean, the digital transformation and making sure that the CIOs and the C-suite teams are sharing with the hiring managers and the direct human resources that are looking to develop or have this master plan for the business in a digital transformational environment, that information is shared, because that is absolutely critical for our team to do what we need to do in order to support that digital transformation, because without the right people hired in the right places at the right time with the right skills, but digital transformation just doesn't happen. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case, and I think that we need to understand that we're going to go through a brand apocalypse over the next 10 years, and that we're going to see major brands that typically would be undisruptable. That's a word. Unable to disrupt these brands because they're so fundamental to the economy. We hear, and these are household words, they're going to get disrupted. And I think the reason they're going to get disrupted is because people figure out a way into the marketplace to disrupt them because they have better digital strategies and enabling technology for that. And of course, we can go back to the obvious, poster people of poster companies of this would be Netflix and Uber and Airbnb and all these folks that disrupted their own industries. But really, we're going to see insurance and healthcare and retail 2.0 and the kind of the second level of that stuff, and see manufacturing disrupted by the ability to automate the creation and development of these various things out there and be able to, in essence, get to a point where we have almost zero latency from the demand in terms of the supply of these things. And I don't think the traditional companies really kind of understand that's coming. And so, Ford, decided not to build any more cars because I think that they figured that they were unable to succeed in that particular market because so many disruptors such as Tesla got into those markets and really, reduced their margins, reduced their capabilities to drive it. And so they're going to focus on trucks, and lo and behold, they're also going to focus on building EV parts for cars. We're just going to see this steamroll going forward. And so when I see companies that aren't necessarily putting an investment into this and not necessarily the structure, the comment earlier was that we need board of director oversight, investor oversight, and these sorts of things. It's absolutely fundamental to the success of the company, but also I think it's fundamental to the survival of the company more than 10 years out. And so if you want to live more than 10 years, you go ahead and invest in this and be good at it and learn how to be good at it. If you want to fall by the wayside and get bought up by somebody and have a brand that people have known for 100 years just go away, I think we're going to see a ton of that coming up.
Yeah, it's like we said, Dave, on the innovation show with James last week, I think it was, where James sort of gleefully said, if you don't innovate and move with the way things are going, be prepared to be destroyed by 2025. I think they were his words he used, which was pretty formidable coming from James. But Sarbjeet, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, my thoughts on that are like I think David. I mean, he's well versed in this, and he's spot on that if you are not disrupting yourself, somebody else is. If you're not rewriting your rule books, if you will, it can be on the business models, it can be on how you produce stuff, how you plan it, how you distribute it. Somebody else is doing it. So you have to be willing to go through this dip, I call it, because it's a pivot. Almost all pivots have dips with it. So when you go from doing the work old way in a non-digital way to digital world, there can be dip. There's investment needed. There can be some sort of revenue streams can be negatively impacted. But on the other side of that dip is the beautiful hill you will be going on. So I think it is a business imperative to jump onto the digital technologies. And you take any industry, you name it. It's healthcare. It can be healthcare. It can be auto. It can be. I cannot name. Actually, I challenge people. I say name one industry which you think is not being impacted by by digitization in general, but digitalization in particular, right? So it's nobody can name it. It starts with our referrals to our healthcare, to our bodies and agriculture. Somebody recently said agriculture. I said no. Agriculture is getting disrupted big time. We have labs in the New York area. There are vertical buildings, and we are doing agriculture without any land now. So everything is getting disrupted.
Yep. It's like we have like in Australia we have cattle connected to a Wi-Fi network that talks to a drone. I mean, it's just ridiculous how someone can say that there's no tech in agriculture. It's like, where have they been for the last 15 years? Well, they'll be saying, what do you mean you've got computers sitting on the edge? Sitting on the edge of what exactly?
Yeah, edge is a proximity. Edge discussions are proximity discussions. Actually, people get religious for edge, and I said, hey, guys, edge can be here or there. So like, okay, just don't fall off it. Don't follow the edge.
Edges here and there and everywhere. But yeah, they didn't get the joke because they didn't believe me that cows were connected to drones. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, that conversation ended pretty abruptly. Sorry, I've jumped in there with that bit of humour. Back to you then, Dave. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately it's systemic to pretty much everything we should be doing right now. And I think that one of the mistakes that people are making is they're not allocating resources and time to transform their business and do the right things they need to do digitally. And so I understand it's very difficult to run a publicly traded company. You have to do quarter-on-quarter growth. You have to meet, revenue expectations, and earnings per share is kind of the measure of everything. And I've been a CTO twice of publicly traded companies, and I had to go through that rigmarole, and it's very stressful into itself. But that said, we're seeing a rate of change that's approaching us that's unlike anything we've ever seen in the history of the world. And I think that the ability to leverage technology in different and meaningful and innovative ways in order to basically do any business, like I mentioned, I can't name a sector that or a type of business that's not going to be disrupted by technology. I mean, somebody I asked the same question, and somebody threw out, wood mill, in other words, sawmill, where they, do boards. But if you look at some of the sawmills out there, they're digitally enabled, where they're able to 3D scan a log and determine the exact cuts that need to be made in order to get the most wood planks, out of the log. And in doing so, they save, millions of trees a year making it happen, but also make the sawmill more profitable and make people more happy with the end products that they get. And so by doing that, what do you think is going to happen to the sawmill down the road that's, doing everything with a ruler and just an eye? I mean, ultimately, they're not going to be able to keep up because the other sawmill made the investment in technology that's in essence going to take them to the next level. So this is a matter of really kind of gut shut time in terms of what does your business mean to you? And if you're not willing to go forward and make these investments and make these efforts and really kind of understand that's going to be a lot of unnatural acts that are occurring within these businesses that are typically not technology driven, you're just going to fall by the wayside. And you'll be probably have lots of investors out there willing to buy the companies and invest in their own digital transformation. But whatever you built in terms of your intellectual capital and the brand recognition, those things are going to go away as well. And that's worth billions and billions of dollars to these companies.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. Some great points raised there. Sarbjeet, do you have any final thoughts on this at all before we get to Dave's top 3 tips?
Yeah, I think most of people get it. Most of the execs in decent sized companies, maybe not very small ones, but they do get it. But the problem is they have to run the shop. They have to do what they're doing right now and keep those margins and stay alive, kind of thing. That's challenging for them. That's enough of a challenge for them. But they don't know how to pivot, how to switch. Like you can, it's not like off here and on here, right? So the concept of digital twins or running the sort of the newer way of doing things in parallel with the old way of doing things, that is the only way to go. And we have some examples in the industry with they have done it very successfully. Intuit is a very good example. Adobe did it masterfully. Actually, I use their products all the time. They kept selling the products the way they were, and Microsoft did that too. Actually, They kept selling the products the way they were, but at the same time they started selling these subscriptions, right, in parallel. And some people hopped onto it, and gradually the other people hopped onto it, and then they saw the value in it, and they did some A/B testing with pricing. They did some A/B testing with business models. I think that's what it takes. So the whole idea behind digitization or digital world is that the rate of experimentation is so rapid. It's like zig, 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 like that versus like one experiment every 6 months. You're doing experiments on daily basis. So I think that they are getting hang of it, and they are becoming masterful at that. Some of these companies and other companies can learn from that. I think having digital twins means like a segment starting. You will start small. We know that, but then that will grow, and then you shrink the other piece of the pie, if you will. I think that's the best way to go. The challenging part is how do you do it? It's not like why you do it. I think why is understood these days.
Yeah, sure. No, it's good. You raised some really good points there, actually. Really good points. David, moves us on nicely to your top 3 tips.
Yeah, first is you need to understand the cost. The way most people think that's going to be the cost of what it's going to take to do the digitalization of your business, I would put it forth as the cost of not doing it. And so in many instances, that's going to be in the billions of dollars over the next 5 years. And so if you're not willing to spend, $200 million and really, rechange your company in an innovative direction, it's going to cost you a couple of $1 billion over the next 5 years. And is that worth it to you? For most companies, it's not. And so you should be able to work these things out. There's people out there that understand these metrics and figure it out. Figure out how much you're going to lose if you don't digitize as quickly as you need to digitize. And I think that's going to be a core focus. Need to hire the right people to do this. One of the things I find that the traditional businesses take their operational IT folks and try to point them at the digitalization stuff, digital transformation of the existing stuff. And while I'm a consultant, and of course for hire to do some of this stuff, it doesn't really matter to me if you're hiring consultants or you're basically going out there and sniping the best digital minds in the business to transform your business. You need a leadership team that can motivate and make some tough decisions that need to occur. In many instances, lots of people probably have to go. Skills need to be changed. Things that are typically very hard to do from a business been doing things the same way for the last 50 to 100 years. And finally, the CIOs should be pulling back, not pushing forward. So going forward, this is the ability to, in essence, look at the fact that they need to be looking at what IT needs not to do and how to do the digital transformation going. It's almost counterintuitive. And so instead of them building and expanding their operational footprint, the ability to, in essence, take this stuff to the next level and kind of redo and replace existing digitalization, really needs to be the focus. And so traditional IT is going to kill people if they continue building on that stuff, if it's not necessarily on their digital roadmap. And if it is, by all means, build it. But for the most part, it's going to have to be supplanted by cloud-based systems, edge-based computing, whatever, shiny objects that are out there, but do so in the right way and making sure you're changing the right things that need to be changed and doing so at the right time, which is extremely hard to do. We have a very hard 5 to 10 years coming up. You need to prepare for it.
Yep, absolutely. There are definitely some challenges coming up internally when it comes to reworking for digital transformation and certainly business innovation, just so they're not destroyed by 2025, just to keep on coining James Staten's phrasing there. But Dave, thanks very much for your top tips this week. Awesome as always. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
And Sarbjeet, thanks for being on the show this week, man. It's been great to have you on the Australia show and the C-Suite show so far. We're looking forward to recording the training one shortly. Thanks again.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone. We hope you enjoyed watching this week's C-Suite show. You can get us all on Twitter. So that's Sarbjeet's at Sarbjeet Johal on Twitter. David's on Twitter at David Linthicum. I'm on Twitter at Nelson_Hilliard. We're on all the other social media streams as well, so check us out there. Make sure you like, subscribe and comment to the channel. So it's always nice to get your feedback on these videos. This is on iTunes and Stitcher as podcasts as well, so check those out. Obviously, you don't have to just watch us all the time. You can just listen to us. David David writes some great blogs for us as well, which are exclusive content to Nelson Hilliard, which we fully appreciate on a weekly basis. So look, check those links out below. Everything's there, so you can come and read what David's talking about as well, which is great. So thanks for being part of the show, everyone, and until next week.